Righty. I think there's a few stragglers outside, but if we can get going just so we can stay on track. Larry's VK5LY's kindly come down from the Riverland and drank all the beer out of my fridge last night. And Larry's going to talk to you about APRS. And Larry's a bit of an APRS guru. And I don't really know a lot about it, although Larry's loaded on a laptop that I've got. I think you'll find it's quite interesting. So I'm going to start using it a little bit more often in my parks and soda travels, and people can jump on the internet and track your progress. So a little bit about Larry, other than the fact he drinks everyone else's beer. He was first licensed in 1978. He's a past president of the Darwin Amateur Radio Club. He's a current secretary and treasurer for the Riverland Radio Club. Larry, that's terrible. What's that say? System operator, see? Bloody hell, ham jargon. System operator, VK5RLD, the digi repeater. SysOp, system operator for VK5RMK, the D-star repeater. System operator for the IRLP 6202, maintains the VHF, UHF iGate on APRS, and he's an active activator and hunter in the Soda and the Parks Award. So Larry's a bit of a stalwart in the VK5 Parks Award. So I'll hand you over to Larry and he can talk about APRS.
Thanks, Paul, and good morning to you all on the after morning tea entertainment, apparently. So bear with me. First, when Paul rang me up and said I'm looking for some intelligent people to talk to a bunch of people, I misinterpreted exactly what he was on about. I thought he wanted someone to talk about intelligence. So I started to prepare oops, so I can get this back. Oops, go back one. Why isn't it staying there? There we go. So I started preparing something on artificial intelligence. And then of course Paul had to tell me that he was actually looking for an intelligent person to talk about something to do with radio, and I said, well, that's not me. But nevertheless, I thought that would sort of explain what artificial intelligence was. If you can work that out, you're better than I am. It's quite good. You can read it at your leisure, I've got it there. But we'll get back. This will be quick, this one. What I did was I grabbed a presentation that an American Dave Locke, KC5SII, had prepared, and as I said there, I unashamedly plagiarised and edited it a little bit just to give you an idea of what APRS is all about. It's one of those facets of amateur radio that you either like it or you don't. If it doesn't float your boat, don't worry about it, move on, do something else. I'm a bit of a dabbler. I like to try things out and see what ticks, and I make no apologies for that. So most aspects of amateur radio, at one stage or another, I've had a fiddle with. Sometimes successfully and sometimes unsuccessfully. APRS is one of those things that I quite enjoy and have used quite regularly, and have some expertise in it. Expectations of the session, what's APRS, what you can do with it, what parts of APRS are important to get started, how APRS works and how you can get started on APRS. I don't intend to go through all of those, we certainly don't have enough time for that. But what is APRS? Well, it's an acronym to start with. It's actually a copyrighted acronym, believe it or not. It stands for Automatic Position Reporting System. And it was copyrighted, that term, or trademarked I should say, by a guy who started the system off called Bob Bruniger, W4APR. And Bob, for those who don't know, is involved with the Naval Academy in the States. He's a lecturer and a well-known guru over there. Well, he devised the APRS system. And there's a bit of debate about what it's for. He originally called it Automatic Position Reporting System, but he has since changed that. He's actually tried to call it Automatic Packet reporting system. And to cut a long story short, there's quite a difference about what that actually means. Bob's position on it all was that it's just more than a system of reporting where you are, as in all honesty, what 99% of operators use it for. His view is that it can be a tactical system of message passing and all these other features, which it is quite capable of doing, but unless you're really into it, it's probably not all that practical. It evolved from the old packet radio system, where in essence packet radio is simply just a digital communications means where data in the form of text is converted into a packet of digital data which is spat out over the air, and people have the ability to decode it at the other end and read it. Those who are aware of the old packet bulletin board systems would be more than au fait with what it actually entails. After things like email and the internet developed, the old packet bulletin board system virtually died. But there was a lot of hardware still around that used to be used on those systems, old modems and that sort of thing. And Bob was smart enough to devise a system of interfacing that with a GPS to give location information and being able to encapsulate that into a packet, send it out over air, and people could then decode the packets at the other end. Sorry if I'm jumping on this, this is a bit sensitive. But that's really where packet radio came from. In Australia, all the packet radio on 2 metres, which is probably the biggest users of it, is all on the one frequency, 145, 175, and this 1200 board. For those technical, I don't intend to go into the technical details of it all because we simply don't have enough time for that. There's some of the applications. A lot of those are American-based, but the ones that really interest me are more down at the bottom there, where it's friends and family tracking of where you are. You can use it in the soda and parks awards and bush safety. I do a lot of bush work. I go bush quite often, not only for the soda and parks awards, which I'm pretty active with, but I also have always been a bit of a bushie myself, and I go out by myself mostly. And this is having the ability to tell people where I am by a packet radio. Through using Aprs, at least they know where I am, and if I'm in trouble and I'm somewhere where I shouldn't be, at least there's a sort of a safety factor there. Besides just a simple being able to see where you've been and all those sorts of things, which are just sort of add-ons. It is used on, particularly in America, in search and rescue and public service events and all those sorts of things. It's used in Australia, but not quite as extensive as what the Americans do. This is how it works. An APRS station broadcasts beacons or packets of information, which is what I mentioned earlier. There are things called digipeaters. Now, digipeater is just a corruption of 2 words, digital repeaters. And that's what a digipeater is. It's simply pretty much like an analogue repeater that you use every day on your 2 metres, except it receives packets of data and broadcasts them back out again in a similar way. And digipeaters can talk to each other and that sort of thing. At home I run a system which is called an iGate. That's simply an interface to the internet, because if you have internet capability, you can have a look on the internet and see a whole range of APRS data. Here's a simple graphic of showing how a mobile station. I should add that most of the APRS is, in Australia anyway, is mobile based on a 2 metre network. To be able to get on to run a successful station, you don't need a lot of gear. There are radios that have that incorporated, that feature, if you like, or that function incorporated into them. Probably the best known one is the Kenwood D700 or the Kenwood D710, I think the later one's called. That they are dual band radios, VHF, UHF, and they have an APRS capability as well. All you simply do is hook a GPS engine up to them and program, and away you go. Very simple. The older way of doing it, of course, was to have a tracker, and the tracker is simply, well, this one here is probably, that's one of the more well-known ones. This is what's called an open tracker by an organisation called Argent Data Systems in the States. The other most well-known one is called a tiny tracker by a firm called Bionics. Now, I've used both. I don't have a tiny track with me, but it's basically about the size of a matchbox with a little blue case. And all you simply do is hook a GPS engine up to it, so that gives it the data of your location, and at the other end you can hook a radio into it, interface a radio to it, so that the smarts are done inside. It will encode your data into it, send it out over air, and that can then be decoded. If you're around an urban area like here, there are a number of digipeaters around here that will pick your signal up. And I look after one up in at Riverland called running off RLD. Oh, there you go, 5 RLD I should say. Again, you can have digipeaters talking to each other just to extend the coverage, if you like. Now, one of the features of all these digipeaters, somewhere along the line, the data has to end up on the internet, because that's where people go to look for it, more so than just simply listening for a data signal. They might be within the coverage area of a digipeater, so they can't decode it for themselves. Well, some people do, of course, but if they're not, the data all ends up on the internet, and that's what's called a gateway. I run a gateway at home, and that's a 24/7 operation. It's just simply connected to the internet all the time. It listens to VK5 RLD. All the data that RLD picks up in the Riverland ends up. Oh, where do we go there? I hit the wrong button. Lost it. Sorry, Nigel. As I said, the system at home listens to VK5 RLD all the time, 24/7, and by the coding of the packets that it hears, it will put some of those on the internet and some not. Depends on how the people have designed the packet that it reads. But ultimately, anyone can go on the internet and have a look and see where the data is. There's a number of sites that you can look at to find out information. You can have a look to see where people have been, and all that sort of thing. I'll give you an example here if Nigel finds it up again for me. Did I? Yeah, okay. Moving on. Yep, certainly have. Yeah, sorry about that, folks, but anyway. It happens, yeah. Now you might say, well, what can I use it for? Why do you want to track people around the place? Well, I guess there's one answer to that, because you can. And the other answer is, if you don't want people to know where you are, you simply turn it off. It's pretty easy, simple. In my case, I run both a VHF-based system in my mobile vehicle, which is out the front, but more importantly for my use, I also run a HF system. So I have a dedicated HF radio in my car, which is reads its data off a separate GPS that provides it with data. Now it spits it out over 30 metres on 10 megs, which is the main HF APRS frequency in Australia. There is a 40 metre one also, And I do that at home, but I don't have 40 metres in the car. It's purely 10 metres, 10 megs I should say, 30 metres. Now the beauty about that is if I go out bush, and there's no digibeaters out there, so it's not like you're driving around an urban area here where a 2 metre signal can be picked up by a local digibeater and eventually makes its way to the internet. Out bush that doesn't happen because simply the facilities aren't there. So, but if you're on HF, there are a number of stations around Australia, and I'm one of those, that listen all the time, have the facility, they have dedicated transceivers there that on the HF APRS frequency, and if they hear a packet come through the air on 40 metres, for example, they'll put it on the internet. And I do that at home. That's what an iGate is. It's simply just a means of getting that data onto the internet. My system sits there 24/7 and just listens. And every now and again it'll beacon out so that other people will know that there is a station listening for them. I also, beside on having one on 40 metres, I also have one on 30 metres. Now 30 metres isn't as popular, sorry, the other way around, 40 metres isn't as popular because of the propagation conditions and all that, but as most of you will be aware, standard calls can't use 10 megs, but they can use 40 metres. Now I have one particular station who operates out of Townsville, David VK4MDX. He runs a tour group that does tag-along tours, and he's out in the Simpson Desert very often. Not so much this time of year, it's getting a bit warm for that, but during the winter months, he'll go out into the Simpson Desert. It's a commercial operation, and he might have 20 vehicles following him around. Well, he uses my system on 40 metres because he's just a standard call, and I can pick him up. And he's often sends me notes and say, thank you for running the service and that type of thing. And what he does is gives a link. 2 minutes, okay. He'll give a link to his family and friends and the people that are travelling with him, where they can look to see where they are from time to time. And that's what I use it for. Also, I'll give a link. My wife knows nothing about radio, doesn't want to know anything about radio, totally supportive of it, but doesn't understand it, but she likes to know where I am, particularly when I'm out bush. So, and I have a number of friends like that. I just give them a link to the website, which will show them where I am, and I know all's well and true. And in the Soda and Parks program, people can follow me around. They can see where I've been. If I don't want them to know, as I said, I just simply turn it off. That's the beauty of it. I'm in control. Give you an idea, we can come up here a bit, since we're running out of time. Would have to be right down here too, of course. Yeah, I don't know how that shows. No, okay. That is the track that followed me early September when I went right up to Lake Torrens. You see Lake Torrens right up the very top there? And you can see where I started from down at my home base at Renmark. Now that's the whole week's travel in there. Now, a lot of those little dots along the way, a bit hard to pick up. You can actually put your cursor on there and it'll show you what speed I was doing. And the other sort of data. I've left one little box up the top there which shows where I was actually heading from Murnamora Station out to Lake Torrens. And that stage I was doing 31 k's an hour. It's pretty. I was on what Google Earth thought was the Morillana Road, but which is near enough. It was Morillana Creek. I was actually driving up and heading out to Lake Torrens. But you can see where I've been. I've been right over on the left-hand side into the Gawler Ranges. There's a number of parks that I've been down. Interestingly, what it also shows of those who are aware of the technology, apart from the red line, there's a couple of pink lines. Can anyone tell me what they are?
That's where the set before the GPS has been corrupted.
Absolutely.
You find yourself driving over water from peak to peak, all over the place. It happens, doesn't it?
It does happen, and in this particular case, I was unaware that my system had a fault. And the fault was quite simple, but I wasn't aware of it until I got all the way back to Port Augusta. You see where the pink line is? What it simply means is the last valid beacon point that the system received and the next valid beacon point, and it draws a pink line between the two. That's not where I actually went, but that's where it thinks I went, you know. Same where I went from down just out of Wyler straight back to Port Augusta. I fixed the system when I got to Port Augusta once I realised what the problem was. And but I also have another interesting little facet that I use it for at home that people are probably a bit surprised about. I run a total solar powered system at home. I've got a battery bank. It's not as elaborate as John's, but it's it does me quite well. But I need to know what my battery voltage is from time to time, and other information. Well, I have one of these little trackers, which one of its added features in it, it has a temperature sensor incorporated in it. And all I did was I simply got a little data module that I had there on 2 metres, just ran it into a little dummy load, because the system will pick it up on a dummy load, and it doesn't need to go anywhere else. And about every half hour, it will beacon, the system will pick it up. I can go on the internet and see what the battery voltage of my system is overnight, 24/7. When you're running a solar powered system, that data is quite handy to see how your battery voltage is fluctuating during the day. And I just get that data off here. It's there on the record. And just another little use that people probably haven't thought of. But in my application, that's quite useful. It allows me to then adjust my battery charging and all that sort of thing to make sure that the system doesn't grind to a halt. Anyone wants to know a little bit more about APRS, I certainly haven't gone into any of the technical details of it, but I do have a few bits and pieces here. That's the type of TNC you can buy these days if you're interested in getting a TNC. That's a tracker unit. You can get much smaller ones. The one that I have in my HF is actually a little surface mount device. It's only about the size of a postage stamp. I've actually incorporated it inside the radio and a bit of Velcro, I think it is, just stuck inside. That's one of the older type of TNCs. TNC is just another acronym for Terminal Node Controller. There's heaps and heaps of these around. This is you can still buy this one, still made, and it's probably one of the most popular. It's a PACCOM Tiny 2. But these are later developments from other manufacturers. So there's a whole range of stuff you can buy. Certainly go on the net and have a look for them. If you want to know about finding out people, a couple of websites, findyou.com is a good one, or aprs.fi. It's a Finnish site. There are others, but that will give you the idea. Go in there, have a look. And if it floats your boat, well and good. If it doesn't, move on.
Thank you, Larry. Larry's been the first naughty boy this morning. He's gone 5 minutes over time, so he's got to give his chocolate back to you, Nigel. Okay.